Alright everyone, hello, and today we are going to talk a little bit about house spirits and what they can do for you in your house and in your kitchen. Let's go. So when we think about house spirits, there are as many different kinds as there are different cultures and ethnicities. Every single culture has a different idea of what it is that lives in your house, that can help you, that can harm you, right? And so obviously if we are inviting a house spirit in, we want it to be one that will be helpful. But even then, there are many different kinds of help, right? I mean, if you want someone who's going to protect your house or clean your house, you're already talking about two very different spirits. So two sources that I really enjoyed when I was learning a bit more about house spirits and when I was figuring out how to invite my own into my home was both The House Witch by Arin Murphy-Hiscock. Really good book, really adorable, and not too dense of a read, right? I mean, it's got really nice design, cover's beautiful, all that stuff, you know I love it. But another one, and this is the one that actually had the instructions for me specifically, was Baba Yaga's book of Witchcraft. And now this is obviously, Baba Yaga didn't pen this herself, but Madame Pamita here, who was part of the Ukrainian diaspora, she did write this through the voice of Baba Yaga, which is really, really interesting. So it's kind of Baba Yaga talking to Vasilisa of the old folktale Vasilisa the Beautiful. And in here was a pretty comprehensive guide on how to invite a domovik, or for Eastern Slavic cultures, domovoi. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It is a house spirit, of course, but for these specifically Slavic folks. When it comes to getting into things like this, getting some books like this that that are, at least comprehensively researched, if not written by people who are from these cultures, very, very good. But, of course, we have to back up a whole lot because we've got to talk about why it is that someone would even want to invite a spirit into their house to begin with. So as I mentioned, right, there are a couple different reasons, right? You might want someone to help clean your house, you might want someone to help defend your house, but either way, the concept of having a spirit to do that might be odd for some people, especially if they aren't used to dealing with any kind of spirit work. So to back it up right away, let's start at the very tippy top and talk about just the concept of animism. Within animistic beliefs, and beliefs that allow for, this idea that everything has kind of a spirit or a soul or at least an energy, one might say that the very house in which they live in is actually alive, right? So right off the bat, why would you want to invite a house spirit? Well, you don't really have to invite it because your house has a spirit, right? And so, for instance, an Appalachian folk belief, which my friend Mimi has told me about, because people believe that God breathed life into everything he made, including the trees and the rocks and everything else, then because the house is made out of these things, the house also has some kind of energy, some kind of spirit. And that spirit is dedicated to keeping you safe, sheltered, warm, and living a good, happy life. So right off the bat, we want to invite a spirit in, or at least engage with the spirit of our house, because it is a spirit that is dedicated to keeping us and our family safe, warm, and cared for, right? These are what house spirits inherently are there to do. They're there to help you out, they're there to, do whatever things need to be done around the house, if you need some support in that, so on and so forth. It's giving yourself yet another ally, yet another friend, in the world of all the different things that you could possibly have to call on or take care of or work with. And of course, house spirits don't necessarily have to be inside the house. For instance, I really do like my pine tree outside. I often throw him things and will say, please protect the house on the outside, and I'll give him little gifts here and there just to show my love and appreciation, because the tree, of course, is a living creature, it is alive, and I do believe that he's got a place over here within our family, within our home. But depending on what you're looking to accomplish, and depending on where your culture hails from, will change what kind of spirit is available and what kind of spirit you can ask to come in to your space. So for instance, my domovik, I love him very dearly, and he does a fantastic job guarding the house, keeping us safe on the inside. However, he is not the same as other spirits like, say, the English brownie, right? So the brownie is a completely separate spirit that does a very separate thing. In this book, it does mention that the domovik does not really like a messy house, but he's not a cleaning fellow. He can help tidy up a little bit, but his main function is to protect, and he protects very heavily. And if you also happen to invite a domovik that has a wife known as the Kikamura is a very protective spirit, to the point that people report people who were not very good to the family, anyone who had ill intentions against the family, when they came into the house, they felt a very heavy weight on their chest, to the point that they felt like they couldn't breathe. That is the Kikimura sitting on your chest and being very angry at you and trying to basically make you so uncomfortable that you leave the house. That is what they like to do. They like to either scare you off, throw things out. They like to make people uncomfortable if those people are not good people, and they will keep your space free of any kind of entities, any kind of people that aren't good for you. On the other hand, the brownie would rather help people clean. The brownie is a spirit that is very particular and wants the space tidy and will often do the work himself, especially if he sees it not being done. Whereas the domovik just doesn't like an untidy space and will certainly side-eye the hell out of you if you let your space get dirty, like mine often does. That is one thing. I do notice, at least because the domovik is there, saying, hey, why is your house messy? I will clean it and keep it a little bit neater. But it's still on me to clean it, whereas the brownie, there is that folklore that it will actually clean up messes in the night, so you'll wake up and things will just kind of be tidy. Just a little bit, right? Things swept up, things kind of rearranged neatly, so on and so forth. The thing with the brownie, though, is that you never, ever want to acknowledge the brownie. You never want to say thank you to the brownie. You never want to do anything like that. He gets pretty shy, he doesn't like that, and he will leave. If you want to give thanks to the brownie, things you have to do include just putting a little bit of sweet cream or a cracker with honey on it, just unassuming, out of the way, in a corner of your kitchen, where it's not going to attract ants or something. Leave it there, wordlessly, walk away. That is very much thanks enough for the brownie. It doesn't really need any more than that. And of course, in the house itself, and especially in the kitchen, there's always been also a concept of hearth spirits. So long as there's been that concept of sacred flame, there has been a hearth spirit, right? So actually, it's really funny. If we look at, say, the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden, the domovik in this story actually does live as a fiery little spirit within the oven itself. And so, it depends on what you are trying to do and what you visualize them as, but the hearth spirits are ones that also keep the house warm, they keep the flame alive, right? It was a very big deal to have that fire going back in the day, that it never fully went out, so that it was easy to rebuild and cook on. And these spirits will, they'll protect you, they'll guide you, they'll help you. So, the Romans had the Lares. In Japan, in Shintoism, they had, Kamidogami, hearth gods, right? They had all these different kinds of things where these small, household deities, household spirits would come in and, live among you. You give them a little treat while you're cooking something, you do something like that. They will help you keep the kitchen safe, tidy. They'll give you good luck in the kitchen, they'll keep the house warm, they'll keep people, happy within the home, the family is staying tight knit together. They just boost the luck a little bit. So if you're thinking, why would I need or want a hearth spirit? Well, if your house is feeling energetically dead, if you are having a hard time keeping it together, if it feels like the warmth, whether physically or just emotionally, is out of the house, maybe it's time to reconnect with the house itself, the house spirit, and see what's going on there, or maybe it's time to invite somebody in who can help you further reconnect with the concept of the home, your magic, and all that other kind of stuff. However, there are some things to keep in mind. Not all household spirits are super friendly, and in fact, of all the Slavic spirits, I'm pretty sure that the domovik is the friendliest, which is interesting because the domovik is not exactly friendly the way you would think of friendly, right? Think about an older man who's grumpy, but you can tell that he loves you because he doesn't yell at you, kind of thing. That's kind of more what a domovik is like, right? Where he kind of grunts satisfyingly, he's happy with you in that way, but he doesn't really show it a lot. And that's also why you'll often call the domovik dedek, right? You don't want to call them by their actual name. Calling them dedek, which means grandpa, is something that they enjoy. I call mine dedek. But that is the nicest spirit. Other ones are not so nice. There are many different areas of a big Slavic home, especially. There was the courtyard, or the garden, there was the bathhouse, there was all these different things, and certain spirits, like the banik of the bathhouse, it depends on how you caught him. He could tell you some interesting things and riddles and stuff. He could delight in talking to you and maybe share some secrets. He could also drown you in the bathhouse. So it really very much depended on kind of what mood they were caught up in that day. The ones that live outside the main house tended to be a little bit wilder. Likewise, there are all kinds of other house spirits and other folklore, like, for instance, Scandinavian tomte. These guys are what you would traditionally think of as a gnome. So actually, the doll that I'm using to represent my house spirit, my domovik, is more in the style of a Scandinavian tomte. That doesn't mean that's what he is. It just means that this is the style of doll. But the tomte, if you make them upset, can disappear your family members. So, it's very important that you remember that just because there's spirits who have a predisposition to helping or, living within a home and being, among people does not mean that they are necessarily safe, right? Even a domesticated cat could get you, right? And even with dogs too, right? They say watch out, even a dog, no matter how much it loves you, one day it could turn on you and bite your face off. Same kind of thing applies with house spirits. Just because they're in your home does not mean that they are necessarily docile, does not mean that they will not punish you if you fuck everything up. I'm just saying. It is still something to keep in mind. It is still something to be aware of, that when you deal with spirits, they don't play by the same rules that we do. They just don't. But so long as you are respectful and you keep in mind your cultural connections, you keep in mind the reason, the why of why you want a house spirit in the first place, you can get some pretty interesting stuff done. And in terms of offerings and things like that, it's also not that difficult, right? This once again depends on the spirit. As you might have guessed, the brownie very much likes sweet things. He likes sweet cream, he likes crackers and honey and things like that. My domovik, I notice when I give him things like sweets, he's like, okay, thank you, but I don't... What he really, really likes is just plain water and a piece of fresh baked bread. Every time I bake bread fresh, I give him a corner of the bread. I get rid of the old one that I'd given him, I give him a new one, and he seems to very much enjoy just plain fresh bread and plain water. Nothing fancy, no cream, no honey, no nothing. Just bread and water. So, your house spirits have different personalities based on where they're from, what they do, right? All that kind of stuff. So that's very much something you have to keep in mind and something you have to tailor your lifestyle to, right? Because obviously the house spirits don't just do everything for free. They very much do not like an ungrateful host or an ungrateful matron or patron of the house or so on, some kind of person of the house. They don't like ungrateful people, right? And they will not work for free. They will not be treated badly. They will not be disrespected. If you are inviting them into your home, it means that you want their help and that you're going to, give a little tit for tat. You can't just expect them to do everything and leave them alone, right? The benefits of having a good relationship with your house spirit, whether it's literally your house or whether it's an ancestral or cultural important spirit that you invite in, like a domovik or a brownie, entirely depends on what you're trying to do, right? And it entirely depends on how you engage with your house itself. So you, as a kitchen witch, can absolutely develop a stronger relationship with your working space, with your house, and therefore pull on that comfort, that security, and everything else and draw it even deeper into your magic, because obviously the magic we do best is the magic we do when we are comfortable and we are able to get in the zone to perform it in the first place. So, with all that said, I do hope this is just a good, general rundown, as well as, a little peek at a couple sources that I like to use for this that will help you with deciding, do you want a house spirit? Do you need a house spirit? What's going on? Where can you find one? So on and so forth. With all that said, I will see you guys next week for another round of discussion, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. See ya! By the way, if you want to see these videos 2 weeks earlier, consider subscribing to my Patreon, where you not only get all these videos, but also recipe cards, specific deity profiles, and lots of other interesting things to look at. Video tiers start at $10 a month, so definitely consider checking it out.